My daughter forgot to hang up the phone. She didn't know I was still listening. When she said, "He's a burden. The house is worth nearly $1 million. We'll sell it, find him a place, then finally buy that home in Boulder." She didn't stutter. She didn't whisper. She planned my exile like a business meeting. That's how I found out they were putting me in a nursing home. The daughter I built a house for with my own hands, the man she married whom I let live under my roof rent-free for over a year. I didn't shout. I didn't beg. I sold the house for $890,000. Cash. They came back from their trip smiling, but their keys no longer fit. And the letter I left on the door, that was just the beginning. Before we continue, make sure to like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments where you are watching from. You can't imagine how pale their faces turned when they realized what I had already done. The day it all began, I was sitting in Ellen's old recliner with a reheated meatloaf on my lap and the TV remote in hand, though I hadn't turned on the television in hours. The house was too quiet, even with the spring breeze rattling the kitchen window. The caller ID had lit up Caitlin. I'd smiled, foolishly. "Hi, Dad," she said. "Just checking in. You doing okay?" Her voice carried that soft, sugary tone that always disarmed me. "I'm eating fine," I said. "Just having dinner. Ellen's old recipe." "Oh, that's good," she replied. "And the stove. You remembered to turn it off this time." She was pretending to care, pretending to check in. I didn't know it yet, but she was laying the foundation not of support, but of justification. The kind people use when they want to take something from you while convincing themselves they're doing it out of love. I reassured her like always. "I caught it just in time. Don't worry." She laughed, but it wasn't the same laugh from her childhood, not the one that used to echo off the garage walls when I built her dollhouse. No, this one was tighter, thinner, forced. After a few more pleasantries, she said she had to go. Dinner plans with some potential investors. Of course. Then she didn't hang up. Or maybe she thought she did. The rustle of her purse was unmistakable. Then her voice sharp and clear. "Jeremy, he forgot to turn off the burner again. He's slipping." I froze. Jeremy's reply was casual, mechanical. "It's time, Caitlin. He's a good man, but he's becoming a liability." Liability. That word stuck. Like a nail driven into wood, just a fraction off center, it splinters something. Caitlin replied, "We could get at least $900K for the house. With Denver's market, maybe more. We'll find him a nice place. Not too expensive. Just enough." And then she laughed. That laugh. The same mouth that used to say, "You're the best dad in the world now," curled into a smile while plotting my removal. My fingers went numb. The phone slid from my hand and clattered to the hardwood floor Ellen and I had laid together 23 years ago. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I sat still, like a man who'd just discovered he was already a ghost in his own home. The silence after betrayal is different. It has texture, weight. I remember thinking the walls felt closer that night, like the house itself was holding its breath. I stared at Ellen's photo on the mantel, her favorite one, the candid from our 25th anniversary at Garden of the Gods. She was laughing in that photo. God, she had the kind of laugh that made people in other rooms smile. "Don't give her so much she forgets to be grateful," she once told me. I had given everything, and Caitlin had forgotten. It was nearly midnight when I opened the drawer in the kitchen, the one with receipts and old warranties coupons long expired. At the very back was a faded envelope with our original mortgage documents. It still smelled like the lemon cleaner Ellen used every Saturday. I took out the deed. Roy and Ellen Hayes. No liens, no co-signers, no shared ownership with anyone. It was mine. I went to my home office and opened the drawer where I kept the business card Ellen insisted we keep just in case. Todd Fisher, real estate attorney. I called him the next morning. "Mr. Hayes," he said, "I remember you and your wife from years back. I'm sorry for your loss." "She would have wanted me to protect what we built," I said. And that was the truth. Walking through the house that morning felt like walking through a museum, not just of our memories, but of my labor. Every room told a story I had written with my hands. The crown molding in the dining room, I carved it myself over 3 weekends because Ellen saw it in a magazine and said, "Wouldn't it be lovely?" The bay window in the living room. That was her reading nook. I bled through my gloves building that. The granite countertop in the kitchen. Ellen picked the slab because she said the gold veins looked like sunlight caught in marble. I couldn't afford contractors, so I installed it alone, lifted each section like it might break me. It almost did. And now Caitlin, who took her first steps in that kitchen, wanted to sell it. Worse, she wanted to sell me. Brian Connor arrived on Wednesday afternoon. He looked at the place like a man who knew exactly what it was worth, not just on paper, but in craftsmanship. "This is incredible," he said. I said nothing, just nodded. He took photos, asked questions. I answered like an old carpenter explaining his tools. When he asked about the timeline, I told him I want it done before they come home. Cash buyer, he asked. Preferably. By Thursday, he had 3 offers. I chose the one that came with no contingencies, full price, and a fast close. $890,000. Cash. It was more than they dreamed of, and they'd see none of it. I moved out silently, packed Ellen's jewelry box, our wedding album, her favorite mug, the one that said "Still in Love Since '81. The rest, let them think I left in a hurry. Let them assume I was confused. I rented a 1-bedroom unit in a quiet senior community across town, month to month, furnished simple. Not home, but peaceful. Before I left the house, I changed the locks, paid cash, no receipts. I also installed a small camera disguised as a charger. It pointed at the front door, ready to catch every twitch of confusion and horror when they tried to come in. Then I wrote the letter. 1 page, no anger, just truth. Dear Caitlin and Jeremy, I heard your plans, the ones where you called me a burden, the ones where you sold my life before I was dead. The house has been sold for $890,000. The proceeds are mine. Your things are at Denver storage on KFAX. You have 30 days. You wanted me out of the way. I made it easy. Love, Dad. I taped the envelope to the door. Then I walked away. Not because I was running, but because I'd finally stopped waiting for people who had already left me behind. The first night in the new apartment felt like sleeping in a stranger's coat. It fit technically, but nothing about it smelled like home. No creak on the floorboard outside the bedroom. No sound of the wind catching the gutter Ellen had always said we'd get fixed next spring. No quiet hum of the grandfather clock ticking in the hallway. But the silence didn't feel lonely. It felt earned. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, Ellen's picture resting on the nightstand beside me. She was smiling, she always was in photos, and yet in this one it felt different now. As if she'd seen this moment coming long before I did. As if she'd trusted I'd eventually find the courage to do what needed to be done. I did it, sweetheart, I whispered into the darkness. You'd be proud. The apartment smelled faintly of new paint and industrial carpet cleaner, the kind of place where nothing had roots. And maybe that was a good thing. I didn't want roots anymore. Not here. Not yet. The next morning, I walked 2 blocks down to the little strip of shops behind the community garden and found a local cafe called Brews and Views. A barista with purple hair and an eyebrow ring greeted me with a smile that wasn't forced. You look new, she said. Just moved in. Let me guess, Cherry Creek refugee. I raised an eyebrow. Everyone is leaving those neighborhoods these days. Can't afford the taxes or the drama. She winked. I smiled, surprised by how easily it came. Something like that, I said. You got anything strong enough to wake the dead? She grinned. You're in luck. Our Ethiopian roast can raise Lazarus. I sat near the window with my coffee, watching the street, watching people with lives that didn't require cameras or secret letters or lock changes, watching an elderly couple bicker over muffins and laugh about it 2 seconds later, watching a golden retriever trying and failing to catch a squirrel. It was quiet, normal. And I realized I hadn't felt normal in years. Not since Ellen's diagnosis. Not since Caitlin started visiting only when she needed something. Not since Jeremy moved in and started talking to me like I was the hired help. By noon, I was back in the apartment pacing. I opened the storage box where I'd placed our old documents and pulled out the little black notebook I used to carry on job sites. Inside, my handwriting square tight, exact held sketches of every beam I'd ever installed, every cost estimate I'd calculated by hand. I wasn't a rich man, but I'd built something that mattered, and I'd be damned if I let anyone take that away just because they thought I was too tired to fight back. I picked up my phone and opened the camera app connected to the charger camera I'd left behind. The front hallway of my old house appeared instantly still quiet, bathed in the soft light of the late afternoon sun. The envelope was still taped to the door. I watched for a long time, phone in hand, heart steady. Tomorrow. They'd be home tomorrow. That evening I went online and ordered a second camera. This one is hidden in a small clock. I wanted another angle just in case. Call it overkill, call it paranoia. But I wasn't taking chances. I also called a storage facility and prepaid for 3 months for their unit under my daughter's name. I'd moved her boxes there myself the day before, labeled and stacked neatly, everything from her wedding dress to Jeremy's executive desk that I bought when he was between jobs. Let them try to claim they didn't know where their things went. I left the address and unit number in the letter. I wanted everything clean, precise, documented, just like the buildings I used to raise from blueprints. Friday morning, I woke up at 6 a.m. I didn't need an alarm. Anticipation had its volume. I made coffee, ironed my best shirt, and sat in the same chair as the day before, watching the camera feed on my phone. The entryway hadn't changed, but the air around it felt charged, like the seconds before a storm. By 10 a.m., I'd reviewed the contract from the house sale 3 times. Brian Connor had already wired the funds. They were sitting in my new account, untouchable. Untouchable by anyone but me. It wasn't just money. It was proof. Proof that I still had power. That I wasn't finished. That I hadn't handed over my dignity just because I now qualified for a senior discount at the pharmacy. 4:12 p.m. A black SUV pulled into the driveway. Caitlin's car. She stepped out first, sunglasses on, Starbucks cup in hand, tapping through her phone. Jeremy followed, looking at his watch like always. They rolled their suitcases up the walk like they owned the place. Because they thought they did. I leaned in. Caitlin reached into her purse, pulled out her key ring, and smiled just before sliding her key into the lock. And then, the pause. The key didn't turn. She frowned, jiggled it, tried again, her head tilted. That slight movement of confusion turns to unease. Jeremy moved up beside her. What's wrong? My key's not working. Try again. I have. Let me try. He took the key and tried it himself, as if his man hands might overpower the reality. No luck. Then came the second act. He walked to the back door. Tried it. No response. Garage remote dead. And then they saw the envelope. I saw Caitlin's hand shake as she peeled it from the door. I imagined the feel of the paper between her fingers, the same texture she used for her wedding invitations. Funny how memory works. Funny how betrayal has a paper trail. She opened it, read it. Jeremy looked over her shoulder. Silence. Then her voice. Quiet. Trembling. He sold it. Jeremy didn't speak. Then came the panic. Where's our stuff? What do we do? Call him. No answer. Email. Nothing. It's all gone. Jeremy said it like he couldn't believe it. Like reality had just rewritten itself in front of his eyes. I leaned back in my chair. I didn't smile. Not yet. Because justice isn't a punchline. It's a reckoning. Let me tell you something no one prepares you for. When you finally stand up after being underestimated, the world doesn't applaud. It stares. It stares because it doesn't know what to do with someone who refuses to stay in the box they were quietly placed in. That night I opened the Bordeaux Ellen that I had saved for our 40th anniversary. She didn't live long enough to see it. But this felt like the right moment. I poured one glass, set her picture across from me on the small kitchen table, and I whispered, "They thought I was done. They thought I'd just let go. But I didn't build a house with my hands just to be thrown out of it, and I didn't raise a daughter just to be buried alive." They would go back to their rental apartment that night, empty-handed, angry, ashamed, and I slept soundly, because for the first time in 2 years, I wasn't surviving my life. I was living it. The next morning, sunlight spilled through the small window of my apartment like it hadn't in months. It didn't smell like Ellen's coffee brewing downstairs. There was no piano music drifting from the living room, no scent of lemon wax on oak floors. But it was still peaceful. And peace, I was learning, didn't need to come wrapped in memories. Sometimes peace came with a lock, a key, a silence no one could take from you. I spent the early hours organizing, digitizing the documents Ellen and I had stored in plastic bins over the years, tax returns, tuition receipts, letters, and hand-drawn birthday cards from Caitlin when she was still the kind of girl who called me her hero. Now she called me a burden. I found the receipt from her wedding florist, $4,372.12. I remember paying it in cash. Jeremy had said they'd pay me back. They never did. There was also the email printout from the job reference I'd written for Jeremy. The company had been skeptical after his firing. I vouched for him anyway. An organized, principled man I had written. Now I saw that email for what it was, a forged brick in the foundation of my betrayal. Around 10 a.m., I logged into my new bank account. The number stared back at me, $882, $340.23. I'd paid some closing costs, covered the locksmith storage unit apartment deposit and 2 months of living expenses. And still more money than I had ever seen sat untouched. Not bad for a man who was supposed to be shuffled off to a facility and forgotten. Still, it made me nervous. So I made an appointment with a financial advisor, a real one this time, someone with credentials and an office, not just a LinkedIn bio and a firm handshake like Jeremy once had. His name was Marcus Lowell, mid-50s, quiet, sharp eyes behind silver-rimmed glasses. He didn't blink when I told him the number. I want it safe, I said. Out of reach. No one else touches it, not even if they cry. He gave a knowing nod. Most of our clients your age are trying to protect their money from creditors, but from family. He didn't sound surprised, just resigned. Family, I said flatly, can be more dangerous than debt collectors. He paused before replying. Mr. Hayes, you're not the first person to sit in that chair with a broken heart and a fat check, but you might be the first who do something about it before the damage is permanent. I liked him instantly. We split the funds into 3 parts, a high-yield savings account, a conservative investment portfolio, and a trust one Ellen and I had once intended for Caitlin's future children. Now it was set up in Ellen's name, to fund scholarships, for girls in trade school. No legacy for the ungrateful, only for those who would build something with it. That evening my phone lit up with a call from an unknown number. I knew the area code. It was Caitlin. I let it ring. A few minutes later a voicemail came through. I didn't listen to it right away. I poured myself a glass of water, folded some laundry, and watched the sunset drape the city in soft gold. Then I pressed play. Dad, please call me back. Please. We came home and everything's gone. You changed the locks. There's a note and I didn't mean what I said. It was just stress. Jeremy was joking. We were just talking. We weren't going to do it. I'm sorry, okay? She sniffled. She didn't cry. Caitlin had always been good at sounding broken without actually breaking. You're scaring me, she said. Where are you? Are you okay, please? Please don't shut me out. I didn't mean it. Click. No apology for the words, only fear of the consequences. That's what betrayal looks like in real life, not like the movies. No grand confession, no tears on a rainy doorstep, just spin, just self-preservation, just someone trying to pick a lock they never respected in the first place. The next morning I visited the house one final time to meet the buyers and hand over the last of the paperwork. They were a young couple, Thomas and Helena, both school teachers. She was pregnant. He brought a measuring tape and a notebook. They didn't ask why I was selling, but Helena looked around the living room and said, "You must have loved it here." I didn't answer immediately. Then I said I loved who I built it with. Her eyes softened. And just like that, the home was no longer mine. They offered to let me take one final walk through the place alone. I declined. Some endings deserve clean cuts, not slow goodbyes. That evening I took a walk through the park behind my apartment. There was a woman playing violin near the gazebo, a boy riding a scooter in circles, 2 retirees feeding birds. Life kept going, as it always does. And I let myself wonder just briefly what might have been different if Caitlin had made a different call, not just on the phone, but in her heart. If she had remembered the nights I stayed up helping with her science projects, if she had remembered the way Ellen wept on her wedding day, proud and aching, if she had remembered who paid for her life in years, not just dollars, but she didn't. And that's the thing about forgetting your roots. Eventually the whole tree collapses. Sunday. I received another voicemail. Shorter, tighter. Dad, we need to talk. Please, It's not too late to fix this. We can figure something out. I need to know you're okay. There it was again. The we. There had never been a we. There had only ever been me. I scraping cement out from under my nails to afford her tuition. I pulling double shifts to pay for her honeymoon. Me watching my wife fade in a hospital bed while Caitlin missed visits because she was burnt out. Now she wanted we. I deleted the voicemail. That night I wrote a letter. Not to Caitlin. To myself. A promise. That I would never again let love be used as a tool to control me. That I would protect what I had left, not the money but the dignity, the self-respect, the right to decide when and how I take my last steps. Ellen would have wanted that. No, Ellen knew that. That's why she'd whispered it before she died. Don't let them bury you before you're gone. And I didn't. Not this time. I didn't hear from her on Monday. No calls, no voicemails, no fake apologies laced in panic. And that silence told me something. They'd stopped trying to fix it. Now they were trying to control the fallout. I imagined the scene, Caitlin pacing in their rental apartment trying to find someone to blame besides herself. Jeremy is sitting at the edge of the couch, hunched over his laptop, searching online. Can your father legally sell the family home without telling you? Can you reverse a house sale if you're not on the deed? How to recover money from an elderly parent who betrayed you? He'd use the word betrayed, not abandoned, not abused, not even forgotten. Betrayed. Because to people like him, loyalty only matters when it benefits them. That afternoon I went to Brews and Views. Same corner seat, same coffee, same peace. Sarah, the purple-haired barista, waved as she passed me a fresh cup. You always look like a man with secrets. I raised an eyebrow. And you look like someone who wants to hear them. She grinned. Nah, I just know a man who looks lighter than when he first walked in here. Lighter. Strange word for a man who'd lost everything familiar. But she was right. Guilt is heavier than anger. Resentment clings like wet cement. But freedom, even in small doses, it floats. On Tuesday I got a letter. A real one. No digital signature, no emoji, just ink on paper. Caitlin's handwriting tighter now, less rounded. Probably the result of too many business reports and not enough birthday cards. It wasn't long. Dad, I don't understand how you could do this. I know you're hurt. I know what I said on the phone was awful. But selling the house, that was our home. That was my childhood. You took everything. You didn't even tell me you were okay. Jeremy says you'll regret this. Please talk to me. Caitlin. That line, that was my childhood, made me pause. Because yes, it was her childhood. But it was my adulthood. It was my marriage. It was my life. She had lived in that house. But I had bled in it. I didn't reply. Instead, I sat down and opened Ellen's favorite notebook, the leather-bound one with wildflowers embossed on the corners. She used it for ideas she never had time to chase. Short stories, grocery lists, baby names we never used. Inside was a list I hadn't seen in years, things that make this house a home. Roy's hammer on Sunday mornings. The sound of Caitlin's bare feet running across the hallway. Coffee at 6:43 a.m. every day. My bay window and his silence. The weight of his jacket on the hook when he comes in. Laughter even when there's no reason. Forgiveness. Hope. She'd written that in 2007. 16 years before our daughter tried to cash it all out. Wednesday brought more quiet. But I wasn't idle. I met again with Marcus the advisor. We talked trust's power of attorney and medical directives. Not because I was fading, but because I wasn't. And because I didn't want anyone mistaking silence for permission ever again. He offered to bring in an estate attorney. I accepted. Control wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about design. I'd spent 25 years building a physical house. Now I was building an invisible one. A fortress no one could tear down just because they smiled over brunch and called themselves family. Thursday evening I got another voicemail, but it wasn't from Caitlin. It was from Jeremy. Roy, it's Jeremy. I've been trying to stay respectful, but this is getting out of hand. I don't know what Caitlin told you or what you think you heard, but this was never meant to be hostile. We were thinking about your health, about your future. Selling the house would have helped all of us, you included. We were trying to protect you. He paused. That fake inhale people use when they're trying to sound composed. I'm going to be honest. Caitlin's not doing well. You blindsided her. She's devastated. You're her only parent left. Do you want to die with her thinking you hate her?" He hung up without saying goodbye. That was Jeremy's tell. Always had been. He was good with beginnings, terrible with endings. I watched their social media that night. Caitlin's profile picture was still the same, the wedding photo I paid for. Her feed was quiet. But Jeremy's, he was selling things. Executive desk, $450 OBO. Luxury mattress, barely used, must pick up. Audi A6, needs transmission work, negotiable. Desperation hides in plain sight when you know what to look for. I leaned back and turned off my phone. There was nothing left to say. The next morning, I did something simple. I went to the garden. Yes, the garden. The one Ellen had always wanted but never had time for. I'd found a small plot at the senior community tucked in the corner near the benches. A quiet space. I planted 2 rows of marigolds and 1 row of tomatoes. My back ached. My knees popped. But God, it felt good. There's something honest about dirt. It doesn't care who betrayed you. It just asks for water and patience. And when I wiped my hands on my jeans and stood up, I felt lighter again. Not younger, just more alive. Later that evening, I passed by the community bulletin board. A flyer caught my eye. Veterans Game Night Thursdays, 7 p.m., Rec Center Room B. Newcomers welcome. I almost walked past. Then I didn't. That night I played chess with a man named Arthur who lost 2 toes in Vietnam. He beat me in 6 moves. We laughed like we were 10 years old again. Turns out grief doesn't evaporate. It just moves over, makes room for other things, like new beginnings. And people who call you by your name, not by your value. And then on Saturday morning, something strange happened. I received a package, no return address, no note. Inside, the photo of Ellen, Caitlin, and me from her college graduation, the one where Ellen's eyes shone with pride and Caitlin was leaning into me like she used to. I stared at it for a long time. Then I set it down. I wasn't ready to hang it up again. Not yet. But I didn't throw it away either. Because some memories don't need justice. They just need rest. It started with a job posting. I stumbled across it accidentally while reading the classifieds for furniture deals. Marketing director, Boulder Tech. Must have 8+ years of experience. No current disciplinary record. No pending legal issues. And there just beneath it a comment thread. Avoid anyone named Caitlin Hayes. Serious ethics violations. The username was anonymous, but the sting behind it wasn't. I called Marcus, my financial advisor, just to make conversation. He always picked up. "Marcus, you ever hear of Boulder Tech?" There was a pause, then a dry chuckle. "They're ruthless. 1 ethics complaint and you're blacklisted." "Why?" "No reason," I said. "Just curious who's hiring." He didn't press. Smart man. That evening I checked Jeremy's LinkedIn. It was gone. No updates, no connections, no open to work. Just disappeared. It takes a special kind of arrogance to burn bridges and forget you're still standing on one. 3 days later, another letter came, typed this time. Neat margins. No emotion. Dear Dad, we've contacted legal counsel. They informed us that while you had the legal right to sell the house, your decision has caused emotional and financial harm to your only family. Jeremy has lost access to potential clients due to the sudden change in address and professional optics. We are asking you to reconsider allocating a portion of the proceeds, even a modest percentage, to help us get back on our feet. Your actions hurt, but we believe healing is still possible. Caitlin. I didn't respond. Instead, I walked out to the garden. My tomatoes had started to bloom. I clipped 1 leaf and held it to the sun. Veins, structure, balance. Not because someone told it how to grow, but because it simply did. That night I wrote a note. Not to Caitlin, not to Jeremy, to Ellen. They're unraveling love. Not because I struck them down, but because they rose too fast on borrowed ladders. And when you climb too high without gratitude, the fall teaches you everything. I tucked it inside her old novel, the one she never finished. Page 247, still dog-eared. The voicemail came the following morning. Dad, I'm pregnant. Pause. I just found out. I haven't even told Jeremy yet. I thought maybe this would change something. Maybe you'd want to be part of their life before it's too late. There it was again, the bait, wrapped in biology, laced with guilt. I didn't react, not immediately. Instead, I stood, poured a glass of water, stepped out onto my small balcony, and let the morning air remind me this was not about blood. This was about respect. And my name, my presence, was not a tool to be leveraged whenever their comfort was at stake. I deleted the message. At the Community Rec Center, they asked me to speak at the monthly Veterans Roundtable. Nothing fancy, Arthur had said, just stories. I showed up in a button-down Ellen had bought me 20 years ago. Tell us something true, someone asked. Something that saved you. I thought for a moment, then said, don't confuse love with loyalty. They blinked. Love can survive without loyalty, but loyalty without love will destroy everything. There was silence. Then someone whispered, damn. Later that week, Sarah from the cafe brought me a sandwich on her break. You're getting popular around here, you know, she said. Arthur said you made him rethink how he talks to his kids. I chuckled. That wasn't my intent. Well, maybe intent doesn't matter. Maybe truth does. She paused. You ever think about teaching what? She shrugged. Whatever made you walk away and not look back. I thought about that on the way home, and again the next morning. By now, Caitlin had stopped trying to sound warm. Her final message was pure ice. You chose strangers over your daughter, over your future grandchild. I hope you enjoy your tomatoes and your bitter pride. And for the first time since this began, I laughed out loud, because they still didn't get it. This wasn't about tomatoes, or money, or even revenge. It was about truth, and clarity, and how some people mistake your silence for weakness, until you show them how loud it is. I never called her back. I never explained myself, because the thing about dignity is, once you reclaim it, you don't owe it to anyone again. That Sunday, the couple who bought my old house sent me a card. Mr. Hayes, we hope we've done your home justice. The bay window is now a story corner for our daughter. Thank you for building something that still holds people together. I read it twice. Then I placed it beside Ellen's photo. And I whispered, we did well. Some mornings start quietly. Others start with sirens. This one started with a knock. Firm, sharp, 3 times. I opened the door to find Mrs. Chen, the apartment manager, standing with a polite but serious look. There's a young woman downstairs asking for you, she said. Won't give her name. Says it's urgent. I didn't move. She doesn't look well, Mrs. Chen added, softening. I nodded once, put on my jacket, and followed her down. It was Caitlin. Her hair was tied back in a loose bun, no makeup. A jacket that looked 2 sizes too big. For a moment, just one, I saw the version of her I remembered from childhood, knees, scraped arms, flailing eyes bright with questions. Now her eyes looked heavy, shadowed. She didn't speak right away, just stood there in the middle of the concrete walkway, clutching her phone like a lifeline no one had grabbed. I couldn't find you, she finally said. I waited. Your number changed. Your landline's disconnected. I didn't know where you were. That was the point, I said quietly. A flush of shame crossed her face. Or maybe it was fear. They're close cousins. I'm sorry. She looked at the ground. Her voice was thinner now. No sugar, no spin. I didn't know what else to do. Still, I waited. I'm not here to ask for anything, she added quickly. I just wanted to see you. Make sure you're okay. I'm fine, I said. Then, are you? She blinked, then shook her head. We walked in silence to the bench near the community garden. The tomatoes were coming in well. She noticed. You're still growing things, she murmured. I never stopped, I replied. She sat beside me and didn't speak for a long time. Her hands fidgeted. She was always like that when guilt settled in. Jeremy's gone, she said suddenly. I turned my head slightly, took what was left in our joint account, cleared the credit card, said he was going to figure himself out in Arizona. I haven't heard from him in 3 weeks. I said nothing. We had eviction notices, 2 of them. I borrowed money from an old friend, slept on her couch for 2 nights, got food poisoning from canned soup. Still, I said nothing. Not because I didn't feel anything, but because part of healing is letting the silence do what words can't. I kept thinking, maybe you'd call, or write back, even to yell at me. I'm not angry, I said. She turned sharply toward me. You're not? No. Then why? Because I don't need to be angry to walk away. That stopped her. You always made me feel like I could come to you with anything, she said. You could, I replied, until you stopped seeing me as someone worth coming to. She flinched. It wasn't cruel. It was just true. She took a shaky breath. I'm pregnant. I looked at her hands. They were clasped tightly. I know what you're thinking, she added, that I'm using this. I'm not. I'm terrified. I don't know how to do this without you. I met her eyes. You've always known how to find me when you need something, Caitlin, but not when you regret something. She looked away, ashamed. I don't know if I can be a good mom, she whispered. And there it was. The wall cracked, not from anger, but from the weight of her reflection. You can, I said. She looked at me again. But you'll have to decide what kind of mother you want to be, and who you want that child to believe you are. Her voice trembled. I don't want them to grow up thinking they can take people for granted. Then don't show them how. She nodded. Tears now, the quiet kind. I don't expect anything from you, she said. Not money, not helpful. I miss you. There was a long pause. I miss Mom. I finally turned to her. She would have forgiven me, she said quietly. She would have. I agreed. But she would have also asked you why you waited so long to mean it. We sat there in silence as a child in the distance laughed. A breeze swept past the garden, stirring the scent of basil and fresh earth. She wiped her face. I didn't offer a hug. She didn't ask for one. But we stayed there. Two people. Not rebuilding, not repairing, just resting. In the first honest moment we'd had in years. When she left, she didn't ask to come back, didn't ask for keys, didn't mention money. She just said, I hope one day you'll want to see the baby. I looked at her and replied, that depends on who you become by then. And she nodded, not offended, just understanding. She turned, walked to her car, and drove away. That night I sat at my small kitchen table. No music, no television, just me and the sound of wind pressing gently against the windows. I opened Ellen's notebook, wrote a single line. Today our daughter sat beside me without lying. The next morning Arthur knocked on my door with a newspaper in hand. You see this, he said. Some finance guy from Denver under SEC investigation. Jeremy something. I took the paper. There it was. Former investment advisor allegedly falsified licensing for personal gain, subject to civil and criminal review. My hands didn't shake. My heart didn't race. I just folded the paper. Some debts don't need collecting. Life handles that part for you. By the end of the week, I had a new routine. Mornings in the garden, mid-mornings at the cafe. Afternoons volunteering at the rec center, helping older folks fill out insurance forms and teaching a weekly Home Repairs 101 session. I fixed a woman's cabinet hinge, showed an ex-Marine how to patch drywall, taught a retired librarian how to sand wood by touch, not sight. Someone said, you should have been a teacher. I said, maybe I am now. That Friday, Sarah at the cafe slid a folded piece of paper across the counter. What's this? I asked. A writing contest, she said. Essay category. Theme, the hardest goodbye. Thought of you. I laughed. You trying to get me famous? Nope, she said. Just trying to help the world hear you the way we do. That night I opened a blank page, typed the title, The Hardest Goodbye, wasn't to my wife. It was to the version of myself who let people use me just because they could. And I wrote. I didn't look back, and I didn't stop. 2 weeks passed. No more voicemails, no letters, no surprise visits. And for the first time in what felt like years, the silence didn't ache. It breathed. I spent those days in motion, quiet, deliberate motion, helping Arthur repair the fence near the rec center, teaching Marjorie how to refinish a nightstand her late husband built in '71, sitting in the community garden watching the light change on the leaves. No one asked about my daughter. No one tiptoed around the subject. They just welcomed who I was now, not who I used to be. Not what I lost, just who I showed up as. And in that small, ordinary grace, I began to heal. Then came the envelope. No sender. Just a clean white envelope slipped into my mailbox with a Denver postmark. I opened it slowly. Dear Mr. Hayes, congratulations. Your essay, The Hardest Goodbye, has been selected as one of 3 finalists in the Rocky Mountain Writers Reflection Series. Your words moved our committee deeply. One judge wrote, I don't know who this man is, but he just made me call my father. We'd be honored to read your piece at the public showcase next month if you're willing to attend. Warmly, Maggie Denslow, Editor-in-Chief. I set the letter down. For a long time, I didn't move. Then I reached across the table and picked up Ellen's photo, propped it up beside the letter. Well, love, I murmured. Looks like you got your writer after all. I didn't tell anyone about it. Not Arthur, not Sarah, not the folks at game night. I just let it sit inside me like a steady flame. That quiet kind of joy that doesn't demand a party, just a good chair, a soft breeze, and the knowledge that someone somewhere heard you. Heard you. 3 days before the reading, I got a letter in a child's handwriting. Big letters, slightly crooked, pressed hard into the paper. Dear Grandpa Roy, Mom says you live far away now. She also says you are the reason I have a garden name. My name is Marigold. Mom cries sometimes when she talks about you, but she also laughs. She said, one day I can meet you if I'm brave and kind. There was a little heart drawn beside the name, no return address, but I knew where it came from. That night I stood in front of the bathroom mirror longer than usual, staring at the man looking back, the gray in his beard, the lines around his eyes, the softness that had replaced the anger. I didn't look broken. I didn't look like a man who had lost everything. I looked like a man who had earned this version of himself. The day of the reading came with gentle clouds and just enough sun to make you feel seen. I wore the navy blazer Ellen had bought for Caitlin's graduation. It still fits. At the venue, a converted library with exposed brick and quiet light, I sat in the 3rd row until they called my name. I walked to the mic, no notes, no shaking hands, just breathe, and memory. I was never taught how to say goodbye. I began, not really, not to the people I loved, not to the version of myself who tolerated things he shouldn't have, not to the house I built with my hands and gave away piece by piece in the name of love. The room went still. I looked at the audience faces from every season of life. Some are holding hands, some alone, some are already crying. I kept going. I learned that goodbye doesn't always come with a slammed door or a tearful hug. Sometimes it's a quiet decision at 3 a.m. Sometimes it's a set of new locks. Sometimes it's choosing to write your ending before someone else does. I paused. Let them breathe with me. And the hardest goodbye I ever said was to the man I was when I let people walk across my boundaries because I was afraid of being alone. Silence. Not empty, but full. I'm not afraid anymore. I stepped down to soft applause. But one person in the back stood. A woman, arms crossed over her chest, a hand clutching a folded piece of paper. Caitlin. She didn't approach me after. Didn't rush up or fall into my arms like a movie. She just gave me a small nod, a real one, and left. That was enough. Back home, I found another note under my door. I wasn't ready before, but I'm learning. One day I hope I'll be someone worthy of your porch swing and your silence. Caitlin. I placed it in Ellen's notebook, between the list of what made a house a home, and the page where I'd scribbled today. Our daughter sat beside me without lying. Then I sat on my balcony. The sun is setting. A light breeze brushes the curtains, and in my hands the tomato I'd picked that morning. It wasn't perfect, slight bruise on one side, but it was mine, grown with intention, harvested with care, free from rot, just like me. A week later, I found an envelope taped to the bulletin board outside the community garden. Plain, white. My name in familiar cursive, not the strained guilty strokes from her earlier notes, but steadier, thoughtful. Inside was a photo. Caitlin standing in a small kitchen, not mine, not hers, with a toddler balanced on her hip. The little girl had soft curls and wide brown eyes. In her hand a tomato. In her mouth a full laugh. On the back of the photo just a single line. She picked this one herself. I sat on the bench beside the garden for a long time holding the photo like it was glass. I didn't cry. That part of me had run dry years ago. But something cracked open, not with pain, but with the weight of forgiveness that asks for nothing in return. She wasn't asking me to come back. She was showing me what had changed. And sometimes, that's enough to shift the ground under your feet. That evening, I called the number Caitlin had written months ago on the back of a previous letter, the one I never dialed. It rang once, twice. Hello, not frantic, not cautious, just open. Hi, I said. This is Roy. Silence. Then, hi, Dad. I waited. She didn't rush, didn't cry, didn't try to fill the air. I wasn't sure you'd ever call, she finally said. I wasn't sure either, I replied. Another pause. Then, she talks about you, even though she hasn't met you. What does she say? That your hands built everything. I let that settle between us. We didn't talk long. I didn't ask where she was living. She didn't ask if she could visit. We weren't repairing. We were observing. Measuring the space like a contractor does a cracked wall, not to patch it hastily, but to see if it's still worth saving. When we hung up, she said, "Thank you for calling." And for once, there was no weight behind it, just sincerity. The next day, I planted marigolds in the corner of my garden plot. Not because of the name, because of the color. Bright, persistent. The kind of flower that grows even in poor soil if you just give it sunlight. Later that week, Sarah handed me a small package at the cafe. No label, she said, just dropped off. Inside was a children's book, handmade, bound with yarn, crayon illustrations on every page. The Grandpa Who Grew Tomatoes by Marigold. Stick figure with a big gray mustache, red tomatoes, and a small girl with a toothy smile holding a watering can. The final page read, "He didn't speak much, but the tomatoes did." That night I sat by the window with the book in my lap. I didn't read it again. I just held it. Some things aren't meant to be reread. They're meant to be remembered. A week passed, then two. The garden turned golden. The air softened. The birds came back. And one afternoon, as I pulled weeds from between the stones, I heard small footsteps on the gravel path. I didn't look up right away, but I knew. There was a tiny intake of breath, then a small voice. "Are you him?" I turned slowly. She stood beside Caitlin, both of them dressed simply. No dramatics, no expectations. The little girl's curls glowed in the sun. "I might be," I said. "Are you the one who grows tomatoes?" She nodded fiercely. "I made one red." "By myself?" I smiled. "That's not easy. Takes patience." "I have lots of that," she said proudly. Caitlin didn't speak. She just watched cautiously like a guest in a house she used to own. "Do you want to see my drawing?" the girl asked. "Very much." She handed me a folded paper from her small jacket, a stick figure with gray hair, and beside him a little girl holding his hand. We didn't talk about the past. We didn't discuss what was lost. We sat on the bench. She showed me her shoes, her scraped knee, told me she liked bees but not the sting. Caitlin listened, didn't interrupt. When it was time to go, the girl said, "Can I come again?" I looked at her mother. Caitlin met my eyes. "I won't come unless you say so," she said quietly. I looked back at the girl, then down at her drawing. "You can come anytime," I told her. "And maybe your mom, too. If she remembers her gloves next time. Gardens full of thorns." Caitlin nodded, not smiling, just steady. They walked away slowly. The little girl waved twice, then ran back for a hug. Not because she was told, because she wanted to. I hugged her carefully like she was something blooming. When she let go, she whispered, "I like your garden." I looked at Caitlin. "So do I said. That evening I sat on the edge of my bed. No phone in my hand, no photos to revisit. Just me, and the sound of the wind. I wasn't hoping anymore. I wasn't grieving. I was just here, whole. And that I realized was enough. Some people return through a door. Others come back slowly through soil. Marigold came back with a packet of seeds. Zinnias, she said proudly, holding them like treasure. They're my favorite now. They sound like cinnamon. I nodded. They do. Caitlin stood a few feet behind her. No camera, no phone, no questions, just presence. That alone told me she was trying. We knelt in the soil together. I taught her how to make a trench with her pinky, how to space them out with patience, how to press the soil not too hard, not too soft. Like a good promise, I said, firm but not heavy. She nodded solemnly as if I'd handed her an ancient spell. That became our rhythm. Once a week, sometimes twice. She'd show up with dirt under her nails and a new story about school or how the lunch lady gave her an extra pudding because I said please in cursive. Caitlin didn't always stay. Sometimes she'd leave to walk laps around the neighborhood. Other times she'd sit nearby knitting something she never finished. We didn't talk about the past. We just planted things. One afternoon, Marigold brought a book with her. Mom says you used to read this to her. I took it in my hands. Stone Soup. The same faded copy spine still reinforced with tape. Ellen's handwriting in the margins. She crawled up beside me on the garden bench. Can you read it again? So I did. Halfway through, she interrupted. Wait, so the villagers were scared at first, right? Right. But then they all shared and made something good. Yes. She paused, then whispered. Like us. I looked at her. She wasn't smiling. She was serious. Exactly like us. I said. Weeks passed. Marigold's drawings became more detailed. Stick figures turned into people with ears and fingers. The tomatoes had stems now, even shadows. Then one day she gave me a picture of 3 people standing in front of a house. Who's that? I asked. You, she pointed. That's me, and that's Mom. Caitlin drawn smaller than me, but holding a watering can. She said she's still learning. Marigold added, brushing a crayon smudge off the page. She says she's trying to do things the slow way. I folded the drawing carefully. The slow way's the only way that sticks. One Thursday, Caitlin showed up alone. Hands full 2 Tupperware containers and a folded dish towel. She set them on the garden table without a word. Inside meatloaf, her mother's recipe, and something I never thought I'd see again, lemon squares with the powdered sugar uneven just like Ellen used to make. I found Mom's recipe box, she said. I used the handwriting she wrote in, even the oil stain. I didn't reach for it. She sat down slowly. I'm not here to prove anything, she said quietly. I just wanted to bring her back, even if it's just for dinner. I nodded once, then picked up the fork. The meatloaf wasn't perfect, a little dry, but it carried something I hadn't tasted in years. Memory. After we ate in silence, Caitlin spoke again. I went to a therapist. That surprised me more than anything else. I told her I'd never known how to receive kindness unless I could control it. I looked up. She said that came from watching Mom carry everything without ever asking for help, and watching you stay quiet so nobody else would have to feel bad. Her voice cracked, but she kept going. I think I punished you for being steady, because I never learned how to be. I waited. I can't undo it, she added, but I can stop pretending it didn't matter. Still, I didn't speak. Because she wasn't asking for forgiveness. She was offering accountability. And that is rarer than an apology. We didn't hug. We just sat there, 2 plates between us, and the soft rustle of marigold stems in the wind. The next week, I taught Marigold how to use a hammer. Not to build something big, just a small birdhouse. She held the handle tight, tongue sticking out, tiny brow furrowed in concentration. Steady, I said. You don't need force. You need rhythm. Tap, tap, tap. When the final nail went in, she beamed. I made a house. You did. She held it up like it was gold, then whispered, Do you think birds will trust it? Eventually, I said, if we give it time and don't rush them. She nodded, solemn again. That evening, Caitlin texted for the first time in months. Just one line. Thank you for teaching her what I never asked you to teach me, I replied. She's listening, and so are you. No emoji, no ... just the truth. By fall, the zinnias bloomed. Bright, defiant, unapologetic. like people who have lived through a storm and aren't afraid to grow toward light again. Caitlin brought a small framed photo to the garden. It was Ellen, young, smiling, holding baby Caitlin beside a row of half-built wooden stairs. "She built this," she whispered. "I know," I said. "I used to think you were the one who made the house feel safe, but now I think it was both of you." We stood there a while. Neither of us reached for the frame. We just looked. Together. Later, I tucked the photo into the birdhouse. A home inside a home. A reminder that some foundations don't need cement, just memory and care. Winter arrived without knocking. One morning I stepped outside and the garden had turned silver frost, curling over the zinnias like lace, the marigolds bowing their heads with dignity. Even the birdhouse was quiet. But that was all right. Silence, I had learned, isn't the absence of life. Sometimes it's a seed, waiting. Marigold came less often in the cold, but she still showed up, sometimes with Caitlin bundled in scarves, sometimes with just a scribbled drawing shoved in my mailbox, folded 5 times with a sticker on top. She never signed them. She didn't need to. I knew every line was hers. One day I found a drawing taped to the door of the tool shed. 3 flowers, one small one, medium, one tall, all rooted to the same patch of earth. Above them, still growing. That was all. Caitlin didn't bring food anymore. Instead, she brought presents. She helped rake the frostbitten leaves, asked about composting, sat beside me on the garden bench without trying to fill the air. Sometimes we spoke, sometimes we didn't. But the absence of performance. That was the real miracle. We never said the words, not "I'm sorry," not "I forgive you," not "I missed you." But in early December, I handed Marigold a wrapped box. Inside a pair of child-sized gardening gloves, worn but still good. Ellen's. She would have wanted you to have them, I told her. Marigold held them like something sacred. Didn't put them on, just nodded once. Then whispered, "Can we plant more things next spring?" "We can plant whatever you like," I said. Christmas came and went with no grand reunions, no mailed gifts, no awkward dinners, just a tin of lemon squares Caitlin left at my door, and a card drawn in crayon, "Merry everything. Love from your little roots." I didn't reply. I didn't need to. In January, Arthur passed away quietly in his sleep. I attended the service, read a poem Ellen once loved. After Caitlin approached me outside the church, she didn't say anything, just slipped her arm through mine and walked me back to the car. That was the moment I knew. Whatever had once broken between us was no longer sharp. Spring returned slowly. Marigold planted carrots this time. "Because they're hiding treasures," she explained. "You have to believe they're there before you see them." I smiled, like most good things. Caitlin brought tea, listened more than she spoke, sometimes offered to weed without being asked. The soil had changed, and so had she. One afternoon, after watering the garden, Marigold sat beside me and asked Grandpa, "Will this garden be here forever?" "No," I said gently. "Nothing stays forever." She frowned. "But what if it goes away?" Then I said, placing my hand over hers, "Someone will remember how it felt to be here. And maybe plant another." She was quiet for a while, then stood, brushed off her knees and said, "Then I'll remember it double hard." A month later, I received a letter. Not from Caitlin, not from Marigold, from the city. They were expanding the community lot, wanted to turn the back half of the garden into a permanent education plot for children, seniors, and veterans. They asked if I would consider being the program's first mentor. Me. Not because of credentials, not because I was anyone's father, but because, as the letter said, "You seem to grow things that last." I said yes, not for legacy, not for ego, but because that's what Ellen would have done, because that's what a good garden does. It teaches. It gives without demand. It outlasts storms. And then quietly, it passes the tools to the next hand. The last time Marigold came that spring, she brought a notebook. "I'm writing a book," she announced. "Can you be in it?" "Only if I get to be the funny one." She grinned. "You'll be the brave one," she said. I didn't correct her. That evening I sat under the pergola as the sun dipped low. The garden was full not just with plants, but stories. Every corner held a memory. Every row of herbs whispered something Ellen once taught me. And for the first time in decades, I didn't feel like I was waiting for anything. Not for forgiveness, not for understanding, not even for love. Because somehow, without fanfare, without permission, I had already found it. And maybe that's the quiet miracle no one teaches you. Sometimes your greatest revenge is not rage, not fire, not exile. It's peace. Grown with your own two hands, shared with those who thought they broke you, watched bloom in the eyes of a child who only knows you as the man who grows tomatoes and never gave up on sunlight. If you like this story, please like this video. Subscribe to the channel and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left.